Hey everyone, it's Mr. Holland again for Mr. Holland's Classrooms, making another math video today. This one's going to be interesting because this is something that teachers have taught for a while, but as time has changed, so do things in technology. So I just wanted to dabble into that a little bit and talk about some things that you can do. And this is about telling time. Now, I teach kindergarten, so in kindergarten, the basic premise of teaching time is really, it kind of leans into scientific that time changes through the day. So one of the things that we do to consistently talk about time, especially in my classroom, is I make a schedule for the students. And this is a practice that I find is almost necessary nowadays. It used to be very generic back in the day. Oh, well, it's going to be gym time and we're going to do this. But as time changes, I feel that it's become more important to create a schedule and a routine for the students. So I don't necessarily put times next to things on the schedule, but I do have a very consistent schedule. And for some students, I even make visual schedules because it helps them see this is what I'm supposed to be doing now. This is what we're going to be doing next. And I can do some behavior things with that as well. But I find that students who really rely on that do very well with taking track of time, because they can look at the clock and see that it looks like this, and when it looks like this, it means that we're going to be doing this next. Sometimes it's even when I have students and I say, when you see this long hand touch this number, that's when we're going to be going. And students start to pick up on that. And those are some of the early things that I do, because we do have an analog clock in our classroom. But I also understand that a lot of people rely on digital time now. It's on our ovens, it's on our microwaves, it's on our watches most times. So introducing and talking about time like that in early elementary can be a little bit tricky. But I still have some materials, and in my class I haven't really introduced this too much this year yet, but I wanted to show you something that I do have. Now, I bought this at Target in the little dollar section that they have. They probably have stuff like this at like dollar stores and whatever, if you can find them. But they have like these cards in them, and they kind of like have like the scenarios of like, oh, well, this clock looks like this, or it just changes the times and shows you analog clocks. On the back, they have the answers to each side, but on the back it's a little bit more standard. It's the same thing but with the different hands. And so if you don't have an analog clock at home, you can probably just draw like a circle on a paper, and you can number it, things like that, and just talk about the basics. So in kindergarten, we really start with just the basic o'clock. So this is showing 4 o'clock, and counting by the hours, because we talk about this is the hour hand and this is the minute hand. We might not get into specifically the intervals. It depends on how the kids are progressing. As they get more advanced, you might get into each interval 1 minute, things like that. But it's easier to start off with the o'clock and what it looks like. So if we're talking about the hour hand and we're talking about where it's pointing, if the hour hand's pointing at 3, that means it's 3 o'clock. And getting them to understand the difference between that and this. It's not 9 o'clock because the shorthand is not pointing at the 9. So it's pointing at the 12, which means it's 12 something. And obviously the clock wouldn't look like this, because if it's 12:45, it would look closer to, like, it's getting closer to the 1. And that's something we also talk about too. But understanding that the shorthand tells us, what hour it is, and then the minute hand tells us what minute it is. As we progress through the study of time, we start introducing intervals like a quarter of an hour, half an hour. So we would start with like, if the long hand's pointing to the 6, that means it's halfway to the next hour. So we're going to call it, like 12:30 or half past 12, those types of things. And then we start getting into the quarters, and talking about it, there's 4 quarters in a dollar. It's like there's 4 quarters in time. So, we have our first, where we start at 12, say, and then the first quarter is partway through the clock. So a quarter after 12, half past 12, instead of saying 2 quarters, because we don't talk like that. And then getting to the third quarter, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4 quarters. So quarter after 3, that type of thing. So like I said, you might not have an analog clock at home. When I grew up, we had one of those clocks that had the birds on it that made the little bird sounds at each hour and things like that. And so that was kind of fun. We have, in my house, we have kind of a rustic looking analog clock, but it has Roman numeral numbers on it, which is also something that people might have been used to, is the Roman numeral numbers on there. That's something that we don't really touch on in kindergarten too much, but depending on the class, you might introduce it and talk about it. So I just kind of wanted to show you a way you can introduce that, and to tie that into digital clocks. Like on my watch, I have one of the Fitbits, so it has a digital clock on it, and it shows you the specific numbers. So once they start getting into it, you can even show them how it relates to digital. It's like, well, digital is just the readout of the numbers and what it says. So my watch right now says 12:07. So the big hand is going to point to the 12, and then I'm going to count to 7 minutes after the 12, and having them show that on a paper where it says, okay, so the big hand goes towards the 12, and okay, so then let me count 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. As they get better at this, you can have them shortcut the times, and so you can show them how to skip count by 5 and skip count by 10, because there's 60. So if you go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, you get around to the full hour. Or you can skip count by 5, and that will help you get closer to your number. So 5, 10, 15, 20. So if it's like 137, you can have them talk about the strategy where it's like, okay, so the big hand points towards the 1, and then it goes 37. So okay, 10, 20, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. Okay, so 137, like this. And you could say, okay, so yeah, but if it's half past 1, then this hour hand should be at least halfway through between 1 and 2, because once this long hand starts getting up to the 12, it's going to become 2 o'clock. So having those types of conversations, and like I said, in kindergarten, you're not going to get too deep into this. You really want them to understand that time changes throughout the day. And so, like I said, in my classroom, we have a schedule, and sometimes I'll add the times to it just so that the kids see that time has passed and it gets later through the schedule. And it just a conversation of time passes through the day. In the morning, the sun comes up, and during recess time, the sun is directly up in the sky. It's very bright, but as school comes to an end and you go home to dinner, it starts getting darker. Time is passing. So introducing those early concepts. So you might be able to engage some of your older kids that you have at home who are in first, second, third grade, as they start getting deeper into those terms and getting more prevalent with it. But as the analog clock starts to become less popular than digital, it's just a fun exercise to say that, well, this is how we kept time, back in our day when we were growing up. We had analog clocks all over the place. So, and that's why Roman numerals is so fun on clocks too, getting them to see that this is how people kept time, and this is how it's considered fancy. Like if you have a nice watch that has Roman numerals on it, and you can start introducing the concept of Roman numerals, that's just fun stuff. So but like I said, I just wanted to give you another idea of something that you could talk about while you're at home. But besides that, I hope that you guys have a great day. Consider liking and subscribing to my channel, because the more support I get, the more people are able to see these types of videos. And we're really just trying to help you guys out while all this coronavirus stuff is going on, and giving you more resources and ideas on things you can do at home. So I hope you liked the video, and I will see you guys later. Bye.